This is a story that made America realize the monster might be the nicest guy on the block.
We've heard an extraordinary story told by a desperate man. John Wayne Gacy is trying to rewrite history and retry his case. Tonight, Gacy's story focuses on the house on Summerdale. For years, it was his home. As Channel 2's Walter Jacobson is here to tell us, it is the center of Gacy's case and all of his alibis. Walter?
Linda, as you know, it was the house on Summerdale that he buried 26 of the 33 bodies. It was his home and his office as well, and he now says there was so much going on inside that house that any number of people could have been involved.
Hello, lovelies. How are we today? Real quick, I'm Summer. This is All Day Mystery. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you are new, welcome. Glad to have you. I like to go over a thing called true crime, mystery, sometimes a lot of mystery. And today, you're going to want to sit down, have some coffee, have some tea, whatever you would like. Let's do this. Today, we're talking about John Wayne Gacy, also known as the reason I will never trust a clown, a contractor, or a man offering me a job opportunity. I will question this, which you should anyways. This man lived in Norway Park, a regular neighborhood outside Chicago, married, had friends, threw parties, active in the community, volunteered. And on the weekends, he dressed up as Pogo the Clown for children's parties and charity events. I'm sorry, that is a red flag I didn't know was a red flag until now. Nobody thought he was weird. People described him as friendly, helpful, outgoing, and the kind of guy you'd borrow a ladder from. Meanwhile, from 1972 to 1978, he was murdering young men and teenage boys. At least 33 that we know of. And here's where it gets horrifying. He buried most of them in the crawl space under his house. Not a basement, a crawl space. You know, the place you don't even want to stick your head because of the spiders and cobwebs. Gross. Yeah, that. He specifically targeted young men. A lot of them were runaways or boys looking for work. Gacy owned a construction business, so he'd tell them, hey, I have a job for you. And because he seemed so normal and successful, they trusted him. He would bring them to his house, handcuff them as a magic trick, literally telling them it was a joke. And once they were restrained, he assaulted them and killed them.
Tim McCoy was the first one, and Tim McCoy's name wasn't put on him until 1988. Prior to that, he was known as Unknown Number 9, and he was buried by me in the crawl space. That's the only knowledge that I have of it.
What was the circumstances of that?
He was killed in the house in self-defense.
And who killed him then?
I stabbed him.
Yeah, and it was an issue of self-defense. Why was he in the process of assaulting you, or what?
He was coming at me with a knife. I just took the knife away and twisted it in his hand, and that's what killed him.
So at that point, you yourself did bury him then in the crawl space.
Right, and if you notice, he's under concrete.
Did you bury any of the others in the crawl space?
No, I had nothing. I had no knowledge of them.
Yeah. Well, why is it that your first one is there, and then 20 some others are buried down there as well? Did somebody know that you had done this with the first one, giving them an idea?
More than likely, when drinking and getting high with the others, yeah.
Manipulation in this case is unreal. He didn't look scary. He didn't act scary. He acted like someone's dad. So back in 1964, John Wayne Gacy married Marilyn, and for a minute, life looks weirdly normal. He moves to Iowa, works for his father-in-law's KFC franchise. Yes, Kentucky Fried Chicken, because apparently future serial killers also need a day job. They had 2 kids, a house, family, the whole picture-perfect suburban setup. But then, because the story can never just stay normal, Gacy starts making some very questionable decisions. In 1968, he gets arrested for being accused of SAing a teenage boy. Surprise, surprise. Which I imagine was probably the moment Marilyn looked around and thought, well, this wasn't exactly in the wedding vows. Gacy gets convicted and sent to prison, And while he sits there serving time, Marilyn wastes absolutely zero energy pretending this marriage is salvageable. She files for divorce, takes custody of the kids, and basically says, "You can keep the prison sentence. I'll keep my freedom." Thank goodness for that, because what's in store for this, she did not have to deal with. Divorce finalized, marriage over, reputation destroyed. So before the world knew the full horror of what John Gacy would become, wife number one had already decided this man belonged very, very far away from her life. And if there were an award for leaving at the exact right time, she would deserve one, because she probably saved herself and those children that she had with him. Thank goodness for that part. Unfortunately, for the rest of the victims involved, they still had to deal with him. He was supposed to serve 10 years, I believe, for this. But did he? Not even close. He got 18 months for good behavior. He was a model prisoner. You would think maybe, just maybe, prison gave him time to reflect, grow as a person, make better choices. Yeah, no, not in the way it should have been. Instead, Gacy packs up, moves back to Illinois, and immediately starts rebuilding his image like a man speeding, running the nothing to see here challenge. He starts a construction business called PDM Contractors, and somehow people liked him. Neighbors, they loved him. Community members thought he was great. Local politics, oh yeah, local politics. He got involved there too, because apparently chaos enjoys networking. And then there was his side hobby, performing as Pogo the Clown, and at children's parties at that. Because if there is one thing this story desperately needed, it was a clown costume. From the outside, this man was thriving. Business owner, friendly neighbor, community volunteer, out here building the world's most disturbing profile. Then, in 1972, he marries wife number two. Wife number two. His second wife later talked about noticing strange smells around the house at times. Nothing she could clearly explain, because why would you know what that smell is? Just something unpleasant that would come and go. And the random wallets from the missing teenagers? Yeah, where did those come from? But she, like everyone else, accepted his explanations. He would say it was plumbing issues or sewer problems, or with wallets, and life would just go on. I never really got an explanation on the wallet part. That I would really question. Like, honey, why do you have teenagers' wallets here? Not judging her by any matter. I'm sure he was a great liar. According to reports, the marriage started falling apart because Gacy was barely home, constantly obsessed with work, acting suspicious, and let's just say, not exactly winning husband of the year. Can't imagine why. By 1976, the second wife, Carol, filed for divorce. And honestly, imagine thinking your biggest problem is your husband being distant, only for the entire world to later find out he had literal bodies buried under the house. The case starts to fall apart for him in December 1978 when a 15-year-old boy named Robert Priest. If I say these names wrong, I do apologize. Please don't prosecute me for it. Robert disappears after talking to Gacy about a job at a pharmacy. Police trace the last conversations back to Gacy, and they start watching him, following him, and they start noticing a smell coming from his house. What's that smell? Investigators later said it was one of the worst scenes they had ever encountered. When they finally got the search warrant and they started to dig in the crawl space, they find body after body after body. So apparently, Gacy not only buried underneath the floorboards in the crawl space, but there was a few other places also, and his reasoning for this was because he was running out of room because there were so many bodies. Imagine being the neighbors at this point. You have this weird smell, first of all, and you've been questioning this because you're a neighbor and you're like, what is this smell? Because nobody's going to know what that smell is. And then like this all happens and you're just mowing your lawn and then, yeah, you realize what actually happened in that house. Nope, I'm good. I'm moving far away from that area. Good. Bye. He was arrested December 1978. At first, he denies everything. And then he confesses. The trial in 1980 was massive because people could not understand how this friendly clown man was actually one of the most prolific serial killers in U.S. history. His defense tried to say he was insane. The jury said absolutely not. He was sentenced to death and executed in 1994. Wow, it took them 24 years to execute him. But what makes this case stick with people isn't just how awful it was. It's how normal he seemed. Scary thought. He had dinner parties, friends, a wife, a business, and then community events. He blended in perfectly, which is why this case changed how people viewed stranger danger. Because sometimes the stranger isn't a stranger. It is just straight danger. Sometimes it's Pogo the clown. So if anyone ever says, hey, I've got a job opportunity for you, we're leaving immediately. Or we're at least questioning it. I like to make money. I'm sure you do too. So we have 33 men and 33 young men and boys whose lives were taken between 1972 and 1978 by John Wayne Gacy. A lot of them were teenagers. Some were barely even in their 20s. Some were students, some were working. Some had run away. Several were simply looking for a job when Gacy, who owned a construction business, offered them work. Can you imagine? That's how he gained their trust. And one of the most heartbreaking parts is this. Some of these boys were never even reported missing. Some had little family contact. Some had left home, which meant for years, nobody knew what happened to them. Some weren't identified for decades. So I want to say a few of their names out loud. And again, if I say their names wrong, I do apologize. I don't mean to. But we have Timothy McCoy, who was 16 at the time. We have John Butkovic, 18. We have Daryl Sampson, who was also 18. Samuel Stapleton, who was 14 years old. Michael Moreno, 14 years old. William Bundy, 19 years old. Gregory Godzik, 17. Robert Priest, and 15. These kids, they were all kids in my eyes. Robert Priest's disappearance is what finally led police to uncover everything. 26 victims were found in the crawl space of Gacy's home. Others were found in the yard and nearby rivers. In total, 33 victims. For years, several were known only as John Does, but through modern DNA testing, some have finally been identified, allowing families to have answers and proper burials. And there are still a few who don't have their names back yet. These weren't just victims in a case. They were sons, brothers, friends, kids with plans and futures. And remembering them keeps the focus where it belongs, on the lives that should still be here. Neighbors described his house as normal. The modest brick home on a quiet street, lights on at night, music playing, sometimes cookouts in the yard, people coming over, nothing that screamed danger, which is terrifying because evil was literally under the floor or in the house, more or less. What he did was evil. Some neighbors later said there was that strange smell around the house, especially in warmer months. Gacy told them it was sewer problems, said the pipes were bad, that there was a sump pump that was the problem. And people believed him because why wouldn't they? Apparently, he also tried putting limestone around the crawl space for the smell. Investigators said when they finally went inside and started digging, the odor in that crawl space was so overwhelming. One detective said it was a smell that would never get out of his head, that he would never forget. And friends, coworkers, they all said the same thing. He was friendly, he was helpful. He said he liked to joke around. He seemed normal. One person even said he was the kind of guy you would call if you needed help fixing something. Meanwhile, he was hiding something unimaginable just a few feet below where he lived his daily life, which is creepy and disgusting and wrong. That's what makes this case so unsettling. There were signs, but they were explained away, brushed off, made to seem ordinary. And his house, it was demolished. It was a lot for a little bit, and the neighbors wanted it to become like a park area for these victims. But did the city do that? No, absolutely not. Of course not. They decided to build another house in the same spot eventually. But apparently, not only did they get rid of the other house, but they dug all the dirt up, like 6 feet into the ground, and took the dirt. They took the dirt, which, okay, but it doesn't change what happened to that land. It didn't change what happened on that land because it was under the floorboards. You know, it surrounded that house. It was in the backyard as well. Who knows? Maybe front yard. I don't know. Does that make this okay? I don't know. I think they should have made it a park for the victims. I mean, they get that right. They should have got that right at least. They didn't get any rights, you know. Before that, they got nothing. And some of them aren't even known. So even after the house was demolished, people started reporting weird stuff. Like flickering lights in the yard at night. Shadowy movements near the property line, and that classic feeling of, I swear, someone is standing behind me, even when nobody is there. Now, could that be passing cars, street lights, when literally anything normal and explainable? Yes, it could. But also, this is true crime and mystery, so of course the brain immediately goes, or it's haunted. With this kind of trauma happening on the property, I strongly believe there would be some weird energy, and I don't think it would help if people were doing seances on the property. Yeah, I don't see that helping at all. I feel like that would bring even more energy, weird energy that doesn't belong there, when there's already weird energy on it because of a weird guy. Also, fun fact, and many of you might not care, but I found it very interesting. Many people do not know where Gacy is buried because apparently the cemetery that he's supposed to be at, because I guess he bought a plot a long time before he died, you know. The cemetery denies him being there, but there is an empty plot next to his parents. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve that. I just, like I said, find that part interesting. What do you guys think about this case? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. And if you're still here, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you so much for being here. And I would really appreciate it if you would give me a comment, give me a like, maybe subscribe if you really enjoy my channel. I would appreciate it so much. And as always, please watch your back and don't talk to strangers.